It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmic Voice. Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Voice. This is Season 5, Episode 1. Welcome back. Yeah, I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What is up, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show, another season. I was so excited, I stumbled over my words in the beginning. Chris, how are you? Season 5, welcome back, buddy.
It's good to be back, man. I private messaged you. You and I go back and forth pretty frequently, and I said, I missed your face, man. We crossed paths a couple times this summer, but, I missed your face, and here we are. I'm in a hoodie, got my sweatpants on. Not sure how happy I am about that. Summer was awesome. It was a very hot summer, which I enjoyed immensely, and here we are.
Yeah, we're in the thick of the fall season. Oh yeah, we're in the thick of the fall season. I'm inside, and I have a sweat jacket on because my wife refuses to turn the heat on until November. That old school thing. Yeah, here we are, man. Season 5, we're back at it. This is amazing. Like, as we were talking about before we hit record, anything is possible. And I guess it is, because we're in Season 5. Somebody's listening. Somebody is listening. I think it's just you and me, but man, somebody's out there is listening. It's amazing. It is amazing.
It is super awesome. I love it. It's so awesome.
I mean, I know when we wrapped up, you were finishing the summer concert series, and you had a new project going on. You were getting ready to play places and record, and I think you were doing a swimsuit calendar for 2023. What else was going on with you?
My summer for shows were awesome. We saw a lot of outside, shows, because that's what happens in the summer. And, I saw some acts that I never maybe would have seen before, because of, prices were a little, because of everything with the world, and, they're trying to get people back out and put money back into the economy. So they were, making, tickets a little cheaper. Maybe they were doing, $4 for whatever it was. So I got to see some acts that maybe I never would have paid for before. In last season, I talked about going to see Santana and Earth, Wind, and Fire. And that was amazing. That was probably 10 times better than I ever thought it would be. Santana was killer. Earth, Wind, and Fire were unbelievable. I would definitely go see them again. You see these veteran artists, man, and they just have it down. They just know what to do and how it looks and how it sounds. I mean, it's perfect. It's just perfect. Let's see. I saw Leonard Skinner again pretty recently, about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago. They're awesome, man. And I'm not a musician in terms of like playing. I don't play an instrument like yourself, but you see these guys, and I don't know if Leonard Skinner stuff's hard to play. I have no idea, but I imagine that a band of that era who's been playing for so many years together, they're so tight, and I don't really think they, it may be one of the acts that actually, a lot of those veteran acts I feel like don't play to backing tracks. I don't know that for sure, but with Skinner, there's 3 guitar players on stage. They have a bass player, they have girl singers and women singers rather. And I don't know, like it's, the singer, he's a Van Zandt. He's not, nobody ever said he's the greatest singer in the world, but he does what he does. And like, there's no reason to have backup. Even like watch Earth, Wind, and Fire. There's 20 guys on stage, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I don't think they need a backing track. Like, there's no reason for it, and it's just really cool to see all these veteran acts. And I don't remember the gentleman's name. Ed, I believe. He apparently was the original guitar player for the Eagles. He was one of the opening acts for Skinner. As far as I know, he didn't sing for the Eagles. From what I understood, from what I read, I guess he had a falling out with the guys. They fired him. He took him to court. I guess they settled out of court. Who knows? But he literally was like, you know what? I'm putting a band together and I'm going to tour and I'm going to sing all these Eagles songs because that's what people want to hear. They're not doing it, so I'll do it. And then I watch this guy. I'm hearing all these Eagles songs, all their hits. And I'm like, well, This guy's, he's just like, I'm going to do it because nobody else is. Like, and everybody's loving it. You and I talked about it before. I don't really think people care that there's, that you're not hearing the original voice. As far as I know, he didn't even sing in the Eagles. Like, I don't even know if he did backup. And here he is singing the lead to, The Long Run and Hotel California. And nobody really cares.
How did the vocals sound?
Man.
They were good?
He was decent. Yeah, he was decent. I don't think he's a singer per se, you know what I mean? Like, and he just kind of got through the song like it was decent, I mean, he wasn't bad by any means. He wasn't off key. He was great. I watched these veteran acts because I did see a lot of them this summer. And I don't know. And I'm constantly like, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, they're not doing it back. Like, they can't backing tracks. I mean, I guess they could, but they don't need to because there's so many people on stage.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, if you have 3 guitar players and you're playing Sweet Home Alabama, do you really need a backing track?
Yeah, really.
I don't know. I don't know. But I saw a lot of great concerts this summer and, got the band off the ground. We finally did one show. We are recording this. We have another show coming up and looking in to get in the studio. We have one new song in the bag. Well, they're all new, but we have one brand new one to us in the bag. And we have another one coming and then we'll decide. So hopefully we'll be in the studio very, very soon. Very, very soon. Sooner than we actually had planned on, because some things kind of changed in our touring schedule. So we're going to use that time for the studio, and you and I have the Here and After project, and I'm excited about that. And yeah, man. So it's it's been cool, and it's going to get busy.
Yeah,
so.
That's awesome. Before we get to anything there and get into the show topic, let me ask you. So you're saying the guy from the Eagles, who had a very minimal role, let's just say, compared to the rest of the members of the band, was let go long time ago. He's out there doing Eagles hits. Is that all he did, was just Eagles hits? Did he do any original material? Or you wouldn't really know one way or the other?
I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't really know one way or the other. I am assuming that maybe he did, maybe in the beginning, because we were kind of out on the concourse hanging out for a little bit as he was on. So, because we were talking, so I really wasn't paying attention to how he opened his show. But the last 35 minutes of his show were all Eagles songs.
Stuff. So
yeah, so I don't know how he started his set.
So, and this has kind of been brought up. Eddie Trunk has talked about it. Other people have talked about it. Is it a state now where we're at in the music industry in relationship to audience and performer that the audience more or less has become either complacent, or is it that they don't care, or have they lowered their standards in terms of just to hear their favorite music? So does it really make a difference who's performing it? Like, could have Earth, Wind & Fire done a whole Eagles set and people still would have loved it?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because honestly, if you think about it, the mix and the bill...
It was the guy from the Eagles and Skinnerd, and then the other show was Santana and Earth, Wind & Fire.
Okay, all right. Well, I could see the Eagles guy and the Skinnerd thing. That's kind of a matching...
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But... in a sense that Santana and Earth, Wind & Fire, that almost seems like an odd pairing to some degree.
Little bit.
Who headlined?
Santana.
So did you see a big changeover of the crowd? Was there more people, or was it an interesting mix? Or do you feel that it was more attendees like yourself who, hey, this is the first time seeing both of these acts, and it's an experience because they're both classic and veteran acts?
I think that in my experience at that show, I think, first of all, packed. Place was packed for Santana and Earth, Wind & Fire. I mean, to the rafters packed. And it was an outside venue here in our area. It was in New Jersey. Packed. Very wide range of people, from young to old. I feel that a lot of people were watching Earth, Wind & Fire for the first time. Now, there was maybe not necessarily Santana, but Earth, Wind & Fire. I don't know how much because I don't follow them.
Sure.
I don't know how much they tour. I don't know if they're just one of those casino bands. So maybe this, because I know they're playing here in town. I think Atlantic City by us. I think they're back. I think they're doing one of the casinos in December. So I don't know how often they tour, but I kind of felt like a lot of people never seen Earth, Wind & Fire before, or maybe even Santana, but I feel the energy for Earth, Wind & Fire was unbelievable. I mean, they came out and people were just losing their minds. And you and I spoke on a previous show. We talked about Phil Bailey being one of the originals. So there's actually 3 originals still in the band, Phil Bailey being one of them. The age range was young to old. And no, there wasn't a lot of, it was a very solid state of people. They just stayed in one place for the entire show. Like, I didn't see anybody leaving between acts, or the energy. The energy is a little different because Santana's kind of laid back, where Earth, Wind & Fire is kind of more up. But for the most part, no, the energy pretty much stayed the same, really.
For more newer generation listeners, and there's a lot of talk over the years, like the last 20-some years, about Kiss being a cover of their own shtick, right? Because of the new members, but those new members have been in the band longer than the original members were in the band.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing is if you became a Kiss fan in 2008, there's no opportunity for you to see the original Kiss from the 70s or the Kiss from the 80s. You have to deal with the act, the band, the lineup that you have at that moment. So to them, because I've thought about this, because I've seen Kiss, I can't even count how many times. Right, just on the End of the Road tour, I've seen them 3 times, and I'll be honest with you, if they came through one more time, I'd probably go see them again.
Probably go get.
You know what I mean? Because the last time I seen him was right before the pandemic hit, and I seen him in Hershey, and I was so bummed. Like, this may be the last time that I'm ever going to see them. And I realized, Ace and Peter aren't in the band, but it's the Kiss thing, right?
Yeah.
And being at their shows, I mean, when my kids were real little, I took them to go see Kiss. And and it wasn't all the original lineup. It had, Mick, and then I think Tommy came in, and and whatever the case may be. But that was the Kiss at the moment. Well, Santana is Santana, right? Like, besides having that bongo player that he found homeless, and Neil Sean, I'm not sure who the other guys ever were anyway, right? There could have been a mix. So you always went to see. But Earth, Wind & Fire, I mean, you could, like you said, 20 guys on the stage, you're kind of getting lost in the lineup anyway, but you're seeing Earth, Wind & Fire, not the particular band, like members, right? So in a sense, someone who's 15 now and wants to experience that band because they went back, listened to the catalog, they're experiencing the band that's now. Another band that gets a lot of flack is like Foreigner, where there's nobody original in there. Kelly Hansen sings, and Jeff Pilson's playing bass. I mean, there's some names in the band, but they're not the band. But they pack the house. I haven't seen that lineup, but I've seen video of them, and they seem to put on a fantastic rendition, but they're not billed as a cover act. They're billed as Foreigner.
Right. As Foreigner.
Yeah, and
I don't necessarily know how much people care, Mick, to be honest. I mean...
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if that's the opportunity for you to see that band, regardless of who the lineup is, I guess you have no choice. Your choice is I either go see them or I don't go see them.
Right.
And if you love the music and you want to experience it live, well, then I guess you go see them. Because it's still not... Because the argument is, well, okay, that's Foreigner, but it's not a cover band of Foreigner.
Right.
But it is a cover band of Foreigner.
It is a cover band of Foreigner.
It's just, Mick Jones has the thumb on that one. It's such a weird thing.
It really is.
Because I think they figured out, like, it's just like any other business. It's like, we could keep this going, right? Even Kiss has said, they're going to stop touring, but that doesn't mean the business of Kiss is going to stop.
Right.
Right? They toyed around with, there may be replacement people.
Right.
That becomes like an official whatever, that does these... maybe you have an East and a West. They have it with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, right? You have an East Coast version, you have a West Coast version. You had Gallagher. You had, you know what I mean? He whored out his brother for a while. I mean, he's technically still Gallagher, but you know what I mean?
It's not the original.
You know what I mean? He carries the same name. It's just so odd because actually, as jokingly, I thought, we often say, like, when we're up on stage, like, we're the best Corners of Sanctuary tribute band you're ever going to see. And I'm just wondering if I could just get somebody in to play my parts, does it really make a difference? I'll continue to write the songs, but, because I'm getting sick and tired of touring myself. Like, you know what I mean? And now that it's cold, I don't want to leave the house, So if it's working for them, it may work for me too. I don't know. I mean, on some weird, maybe it even improve the band somehow. I don't know. Get some young guy in there who I can actually play. So Man,
it's a crazy thing, man. It really is, and I didn't even think about Phil Bailey being in the band until you had mentioned it on one of our last shows. I'm like, oh yeah, like he's part of the band. So like somebody like me, I'm glad I could, even with Skinner, like I could say I saw 2 or 3 originals, and that's
right.
cool. But I don't necessarily know how many people, maybe old, like older people like myself, when they announce Phil Bailey, everybody goes, yeah, but it's more of an older crowd. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a few younger people.
Was Phil Bailey doing the primary lead vocals, or were they?
He was.
Okay, yeah.
No, he was, and he said, to tell you, bro, I don't know how old that gentleman is, but he sounds great.
Oh yeah, they were professionals. Netflix used to have it was like an early '80s concert of Earth, Wind and Fire. It's amazing, man, and that's back then.
Right. So
they were, they listen. I think for guys like that, the veterans like that. It's so natural for them because that's all they've done. You're talking guys that started in the 70s, right? And these are real musicians. These are guys that can
100%.
play their instruments in the dark with their eyes closed. You know what I mean? Using, these are amazing musicians. They're moving, they're dancing, they're singing. They're just, they're wearing them tight costumes. It's second nature to them. And I really believe that guys like that, they're doing it because of the pure enjoyment.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It really is about the energy of the music. Chicago's another band. Like, they got yet another lead singer. And I think, like, the one saxophone player is kind of like now the leader of the band. The guy who was in the background for years, after Peter Cetera, I don't know,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
They did have that young guy who kind of sounded like him that took place in the 80s. In the 80s they had a hit or two, and then he was in the band. Now there's another guy, and I don't know. That's, and again, I mean, unless you were really a Chicago fan and knew everybody, because that was another band that had like 1,700 members in there.
Yeah,
16 guitar players, 20 drummers. A flute guy, harps.
Yep.
At one point, like, everybody wanted, like, to have a Jerome in the band. Somebody just carried a mirror around for the singer and just kind of danced in the back. Really did. I mean, that's what you need. Like, hey, man, we got a buddy here. He doesn't really play, can't do anything, but he looks pretty good in the suit. Bring him up on stage. Let's dance around, man. Need somebody to, bring out stuff for us, a glass of water or whatever. It's a whole shtick. I mean, that's a great gig, too,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. It's killer, man. And watching Santana, his wife plays drums, and let me tell you, she is a firehouse, man. She beat that kid like nobody I've ever seen. She did like a drum solo, dude. She did a drum solo coming out of the encore. Like he played an hour, whatever it was, and of course they leave the stage and they come back, and then she did a quick drum solo, and then they played 2 more songs. So she literally played that entire time, and then did a drum solo. It was only like 10 minutes or so. At the end of the set, let me tell you, this woman, her name escapes me, and I want to say she played
Mrs. Santana.
Is Santana's wife?
Mrs. Santana.
Miss Santana, dude, she is. I think she played for Lenny Kravitz. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. She was unbelievable, bro. Beat the hell out of this drum kit. I mean, like, beat it. And they had, like, when she was doing drum solo, they had like a camera overhead.
Yeah.
They had like a camera on her feet. Her feet were flying, dude. Like, I'm almost like, she should be in a metal band. Like, she's kind of wasting.
Again, you're talking higher echelon performers, musicians, not just your standard rock and roll guys. And I'm not saying that they're not good guys, because they are. They're quality guys. But these are craftsmen, in my opinion.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I know Santana over the last couple of years, he did an online master class of guitar playing. I mean, that's just amazing stuff. I mean, there's just no two ways about it,
Amazing.
It's Russ the Boss.
Take it down.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
So listen, let's get to the topic, because we just spent 25 minutes talking about everything but this is a business show. I guess there was some business. I don't know. We're just excited to be back. Hey, listen, you'll have 19 other episodes to get to hear us, droll on and on and on about the negative side of the business. Coming to Christmas and stuff like that. So maybe we can get Santa Claus back again for, I don't know. He's busy this time. Yeah, he's crazy this time of year. So who knows? Speaking of which, Disney's doing the Santa Clauses or something. They're making it a little.
Did you see that?
I seen the previews. It looks interesting. I just hope they don't blow it like they do everything else. Because, I mean, it's a series.
So bad.
Listen, I watched Hocus Pocus 2. I was kind of bummed out. It wasn't bad, but it had some plot holes, which they just kind of glossed over, and I couldn't get connected to the characters. It just seemed like there was just a lot of yelling. And, I'm going to try to watch it again, but, I mean, I'm getting too old for yelling. I do remember when The Grinch Stole Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey came out in 2000, somebody had said it frightened children and it was a lot of yelling. And I kind of agreed with it, but over the last 20-some years, I've gotten to, it's aged well with me, and I love I love it. So maybe, because, look, I seen a headline just a couple weeks ago about Hocus Pocus, 29 years of celebrating a movie that was really not that good.
That is 1,000% correct.
Hocus Pocus didn't do well at all in the theaters in its original release.
Nope.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just kept, I don't know, clawing at people. Now here it is, almost 30 years later, and we got a sequel. Well, maybe they should have kept it in the bag. It made a little bit more exciting, but. Hey, listen, what do I know? It's a payday. Sharika Jessica Parker, she admitted that she had never even watched the original edited cut. That's how much she wanted to separate herself. But when the payday's there, baby.
Yeah, man.
Yep. I guess I would do it too. Why not?
Yeah. And, Disney just hoard out. I mean, there's Hocus Pocus merch everywhere. I know. And, no, it wasn't a great movie. It really wasn't.
No spoiler here, but to me, the best part of the movie was the opening. The three little girls that played the witches as young people. Spot on, man.
Spot on.
They were so funny. I mean, they had the mannerisms down, the inflections in the voice. That's quality. I hope they become, I hope Disney doesn't ruin them and, they start drinking in their trailer in between takes. Like poor Miley Cyrus. I don't know.
Yeah, right?
I'll tell you what, though. Did you see the clip of, during, I know we're supposed to be jumping into the thing, but Miley Cyrus with Def Leppard.
Oh,
she did she is so talented and amazing, and she looked real good. I love this new look.
I do too. This is the best she has been looked. And, my buddies rag on me all the time. I like Miley Cyrus.
I do
she
too.
Is super talented. Her voice is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. She's incredible.
And she rocked it. Now, what I was a little surprised at was she didn't sing more. She kind of backed up Joe Elliott. And I was wondering, is it because Joe Elliott has a higher range than she does?
No, I think that she didn't want to overshout. I mean, listen, every time she opened up her mouth, she was overshouting.
Yeah. Okay.
I love Joe Elliott. Don't get me wrong. But she should just.
She could have buried Joe Elliott.
That album that she released, I guess during the COVID thing and all.
Oh, it's
amazing.
So good, it's so good.
She is. Yeah. I mean, she has the look, the sound, the style. I know she she went through that loony bin stage where she was, but she was young, But she's incredible. She needs to I mean, she could front, like you said, a metal band.
Oh yeah,
she would be, and that new look is incredible. Yeah. She's badass.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
No, she is, and it was great. It was awesome. And we don't even have to talk about, Wolfgang Van Halen.
Yeah.
We don't even have to, because he just kills everybody.
He kills me. I don't want to turn fans away, so I'm not even going to get into that conversation. So let's get to the topic tonight. The topic tonight is growing up metal. Growing up metal. What does that mean? What did it look like? What did it entail? How did it affect you? Chris, what was it like growing up metal? Because you are the metal king of the area. Everybody knows it. Our buddy Joe on Facebook, I won't use his last name, but he knows you are the king of metal.
I'm the metal machine.
Yeah, in case I miss anything you post, Joe puts it out there and I catch up on it. Thank you, Joe.
Growing up metal, man, I was thinking about this for the past couple of days since you and I had talked about this was the subject we were going to start the season off with, season 5. You and I always fall back, and I try not to, but it's just such part of our lives right now. It was such a different time then. Of course it was, because we didn't have social media. But growing up metal for me in the beginning, it was really awesome because when you found that diamond in the rough, it was just an amazing thing. What I mean by that was, we used to go to the mall on a Friday night, every Friday night, because we're mall rats. That's what we did when we were teenagers. With $20 in hand, one of our parents would drive us to the mall. We would walk the mall. We would go to listening booth. We would buy records. Now, mind you, this is still $20. And we would buy 1 or 2 buttons for our jackets, and then we would go to the food court and eat, and still on that $20. Like, it was amazing. You would find those records, and you would take them home, and, you know, maybe a band that you'd never heard of or a band that was brand new at the time. I mean, I found them all, like Rat and Poison and Laz Rocket and, you know, like all these great acts, and Slayer, and you take them home, and it was like you would just hear it, and it just changed you because you found it, right? Like, that's what I always say about Metallica. Like, people bag on Metallica because they changed. Well, guys our age bag on Metallica because it's not our Metallica. Like, our Metallica was different than the Metallica that we know today. So when you get that record home and you listen to it and you're like, man, like, I found this. This is mine. Like, this was a part of who I was because I found it. I didn't search it out because I didn't know they were there. It just kind of happened. And, you know, now in the day of social media, you're just one click and you can find 30 bands that, you know, and you know, everybody's sharing. And I don't want to say it's not as special. It's just not as exciting. And what I mean by that was, you know, because one of your friends or social media, you find a band, you go, oh man, I never heard of this band. Then you look and they have like 30,000 likes or, you know, people listening, and you go, oh my God, I never heard of this band. How did I miss this band? But back in the day, you were like, when you found a record, you'd show it to your friends, and then everybody like, oh, I never heard of them before. And I feel that's kind of lost. And that excitement to me, I feel like is kind of lost. I hope I'm making sense, but I feel like with the days of social media, it's almost like a fear of missing out. Like, you feel like you've missed out on something because all these people have already known about it and you did not. And I know that, I guess the same could be said back then, but you didn't know it back then. Like, you didn't realize that Metallica was, you know, when we got Metallica here on the East Coast, you didn't realize that they were this big thing on the West Coast. You know what I mean? Like, for you, it was like, oh, I found this band, then they would come to town, and it's just different. It's just different. You and I talk about it all the time, the effects of social media and, you know, the oversaturation of the market. And it was just different, man. For me, it was the excitement of finding something new and not realizing that it was special because you found it, and you could show it to your friends, or you could tape copy whatever we did and share it or whatever. And I feel like you kind of lose that in the social media days because we were also, you know, we would all get together and put a tape deck in the radio player. We would all hang out and listen to it. And, you know, I remember when Cliff Burton was killed. I remember this like it was yesterday. I remember when Cliff Burton from Metallica was killed. Bunch of us went to local park and we just played Master Puppets over and over. Hours, I think we were there, like just kind of celebrating his life and how affected we were by his death. And I feel like you don't have that anymore. You don't have that, I don't want to say togetherness because that's not what it is. Because you're always connected to people. It's just a different connection, I feel.
Well, that personal unity seems to be missing that we had growing up. And when we shared the album experience with your group, you know, whatever your group was, could be 2 or 3 people, could be 20 people, whatever, where nowadays it's not that way. And as we were talking about earlier, the lineups of bands change so often that sometimes people aren't even aware of it. Where then, like, you knew the guys in the band, you knew the music, you know, because like you said, you felt like you discovered them and it became almost yours. And in that moment, that was your experience. Like you said, it made you feel a certain way. It created all these emotions. And it was an opportunity to share that with other people who often felt very similar to it as well. I mean, I remember speaking of the same thing. Like, I mean, because we grew up together, we would, you know, all of us would pile into the one person that had a license in a car and, you know, either tape deck or whatever. And everybody would have their whatever tape they wanted to play. And it would be silence while the album was being played. Nobody would talk. We all may sing together or air guitar and drumming, but the tape, the music...
It was like Wayne's World.
Yeah, the music took precedence, right? The music took precedence. And it was what connected us. Now, I mean, some people would say, well, was that shallow? Was there nothing going on? Well, I mean, look, you and I, here it is, 35, almost 40 years later... we're still connected. So the music, it's kind of like guys that, and I'm not, you know, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but guys that experience some kind of trauma together or some kind of event in life, they're usually connected for long periods of time, even if they're not with each other all the time. And I believe that the music from that era did that to a lot of people. And again, that may be one of the reasons, going back to what we talked about in the beginning of the show, why people are still going to see bands at live shows that none of the original members are there, because there's something about that music from that era that just, again, of that generation.
Yeah.
Of that generation.
Yeah.
Because I remember, you're right. We go to the mall with, sometimes I went with less than $20. I was able to buy an album, get something to eat, go to the arcade, and still maybe have $1 or $2 left in my, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. But you would spend, listening booth and Sam Goody, you would spend a majority of your time in there just kind of rifling through things. And again, I know that people are doing that now because vinyl's such a big deal. Like if you go back to, some of these vinyls, you've got guys in there and they're combing the things. I also believe that a lot of those guys are combing them because they're looking for that rarity. I think it's become, because just like Star Wars toys became popular again because it was a way for people to make money by reselling them, right? So how many people really love Star Wars, and how many people love just the toys, or how many people just are doing it because it's a business sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go to like Goodwills and places like that, and you can tell the guys and gals that are combing the stuff for those things that they can resell, right? Yeah. Because that's a hot new thing. I do it myself. I think that today with the social media type of stuff and the streaming, there's a funneling system that's happening and other bands are being missed. Like if there's a band that's right now, whatever, on Facebook that seems to everybody would, that's where everybody grabs. It's the herd mentality, as opposed to finding some stuff on your own. I think it's harder now to discover newer music. And you were saying it earlier, it's getting harder to find things on Spotify.
Yeah.
Because of the amounts of music that just keep being pumped out. Spotify can't even keep up with it themselves to some degree. And a lot of that, like we were talking about off air, has to do with the algorithm. I don't think that they're able to, it's just like the bandwidth of something. Like if everybody's on that site at one time, things are going to move slower. Maybe the picture's smaller. It's a little bit more grainy. You'll kind of see that if you're watching your streaming services. Sometimes Netflix all of a sudden gets grainy, and it's because the bandwidth is changing, or they can't keep up with the amount of people that are there.
Yep, that are on it. Yeah.
You are listening to The Cosmic Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
Listen, that was definitely one aspect of growing up metal, because there was that Friday and Saturday that you had the opportunity to get to the mall. Again, malls were part of the bigger culture then. It was a social gathering type of area, and it was a safe haven, more or less, for guys like us who didn't have jobs, had limited amount of money, and they could frequent without much issue, and it was acceptable. I don't know, do people still do that the same way as we did it back then? Because nowadays you can't loiter anywhere, and if you're in one place too long, the Patriot Act kicks in, and then you're strip searched somewhere in the back of a room. And then you can't fly to Arizona anymore. Nowadays there's so much restriction on what you can do or can't do. Honestly, like what we were doing back then was like loitering, disturbing the peace. You know what I mean? Some things that I'm sure probably weren't the best, but for me, it was difficult at times, and I went to Catholic school, so, immediately growing my hair out was not something that was widely done and or accepted. You quickly stood out, and I had a woofing afro. I had, that Italian afro that just, like, it grew long but seemed to grow higher and wider than anything else, So it wasn't easy to hide. So, but I thought it was cool, and the more hair dryer I could use, the more it would get out there. But I did catch a lot of ridicule and I guess bullying because of that. Also, coming from a Catholic religious type family, it probably wasn't, it wasn't that widely accepted at home, because, during the 80s, there was the PMRC and the backwards masking, and everyone that listened to anything louder than 2 was Satan worshiper, and this, that, and the other thing. And so you were dealing with that. But at the same time, because of that, you felt this camaraderie and brotherhood with other people that were experiencing something as well. It was like an us against them type of thing. Not that we went out and rioted or caused mayhem or anything, but what we did is we continued to play the music. Maybe we played it louder than we should have to agitate people, but that was the idea, right? I mean, and you know, but it was just the fact that we existed and we existed together and we created that presence. To us, I mean, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen, gave us that empowerment that we, you know, again, we weren't trouble. I didn't believe that we were troublemakers. I can't speak for everybody.
No.
There was always those that loved to cause trouble, but that not, you know, but I know that when I started playing in bands, like we were hanging out as groups Friday and Saturdays. Like, you know, we didn't necessarily then go to the malls anymore. We were making the music, sharing the music, and then, you know, we would play music from the favorite bands or whatever. And like you said, like somebody would discover a band, and again, you're talking these little pockets when there wasn't social media, where you had to wait a month to find out what was going on with your favorite band until the new magazine came out. MTV was our biggest social connection to anything, and you watched it religiously. You know?
Yep.
You know, when someone passed away or something happened, they had it in the breaking news, so you were kind of up on the whatever. But most of whatever you heard or talked about happened in these groups. Somebody would say, hey, did you hear about this? Or, you know, did you read about this? Or whatever. And then, you know, that's where myth and legend and lore and propaganda would also, you know, you'd hear stories and like, you know, oh yeah, and then, you know, whatever. And that became the truth in a sense because two people agreed to it and whatever. You know, the fact that I'm still with it today demonstrates to me the empowerment that the music, the metal music in particular, kind of gave to me as an individual and what it did for me as someone who wanted to not just listen to it, but write it and play it. Because, again, here I am at 30-some years later, and I'm still doing it. You're still doing it. There's a number of people that are still doing it. There's other people that aren't doing it. But they still have this connection, right? And it's those bands that you discovered, you found back then that you still have that connection with today. And that's what I was saying in one podcast last season or the season before, is like prior to that 30 age mark is when we make those real connections. Not to say that we can't like other bands or develop a relationship with another band, or even that style of music that we like, but it's that preteen, teenage, early 20s that resonates most with us because we're still discovering ourselves as we're discovering, because whatever we discover becomes a piece of us, in a sense, you know what I mean? I think, you know, in a sense, that's kind of why even my songwriting is still kind of trapped in that era. I try to modernize it by working with other people and other concepts, but there's still that underlying thing because that's who I am. I'm resonating true with myself and what it was that made me want to continue with that. So there was some excitement. Listen, I couldn't wait to hang out with people and listen to the music, and there was an excitement. Like you know, we talked about this before. In the 80s, going to a concert, whoever it was that you were going to go see, it was such a massive event. Because you could dress even a little bit more because it was a culture down there. It was like, man, this is, you know, the higher your hair, the better it was. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, I'm putting 2 more bandanas on my pant leg. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. It was like, you know what I mean? I'm going to put something else on my jean jacket. It was really a culture. Now, again, as with anything, I mean, there was guys that were just doing the cult we called posers, and you have that today. You have it everywhere.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was hard at times when you were outside of your culture, especially growing up. You just felt there could have been some razzing-madazzing, you know, from certain people, or you just didn't fit in, or you were considered. Again, going to Catholic school, you were definitely already labeled a troublemaker, which may have not have been the case, a drinker, which in my case wasn't true at all, a drug user, which again, in my case, wasn't at all. You know, you used foul language. Well, that was 100% true with me. I'm a professional at that. But I don't think that would have had, whether I listened to metal music or not, being who I am and what I, you know, grew up with, I'm sure that language, that sailor talk, that would have been 100% either way. And some people may be surprised listening to us on this podcast because we seldomly use any foul language, but that's because this is a professional podcast.
That's right. I think, too, though, even in our big circle of friends and who you and I hung around with, whether it be together or our separate circles, we weren't drinkers. We weren't drug users. We just hung out. Like I know I could speak for, a lot of me and on my end, because I went to public school. We didn't do drugs. We didn't drink. Like we didn't even really care about it. Really, it was about hanging out, listening to music or talking about music or, trying to find that t-shirt or that button or whatever. Like we didn't really do all that. Like even some of those guys that I still talk to, they didn't start drinking until they were in their late 20s. Really, we just didn't do that. It just wasn't what even your circle, like we just didn't do that. That wasn't us. We weren't troublemakers. We just like to hang out and have foul language and listen to music too loud.
Yeah, I remember I can countless like get-togethers at different people's houses, and you would have the two groups get together and then some additional groups. And I don't really remember. I mean, there may have been like, a couple people here or there that wanted to do this or do that. But, like everybody talked about that peer pressure thing. I never experienced that. Like, hey, dude, you want to? Okay. And that they would just leave it. It was never like, come on, you got to do it. What do you lose? Or, I never had that problem, man. Like, nah, man, not interested. You know what I mean? Nah. And that was the end of it. And it never seemed to affect me. So even back then, they used to talk about the peer pressure thing. I said, I don't buy it. I don't understand. That's more of an individual's take on it. You either stand your ground or you don't. And I never felt pressure to do it one way or the other. It was like, kind of like whatever you made your choice and whatever. That was it. Half the time there was nothing, like if you found a bowl of chips at those things, that was a plus, but you may have not even wanted to try that because you just, you don't know how old those chips were or where they've been. So, you got there and everybody was jamming to the music and whatever. And like I said, as I started playing in bands, there was either a band there or you played or a group of you got together and just kind of messed around a little bit. But it was, I don't know, it was that experience. The flip side of that is, on the more national scene, metal at the time, as it was starting to get more and more popular, MTV was pushing it, it was becoming mainstream, there was a backlash in terms of more of the adult crowd, right? Like, metal's this, metal's that. Like I said earlier, the PMRC started pushing, for... which only backfired for them because it just increased sales. Yeah. They couldn't abolish the music. They couldn't abolish, like, if someone wanted to put content of some sort in the album, they just put a warning label, which was a flag for people like, oh, this must be interesting, let me get it. Oh, this is just a boring thing, it doesn't have the PR. You actually, then bands went out trying to get the PMRC label because it helped sales. Yep. So in a sense, it backfired. Do they still put the warning label on CDs? Is it still there?
Yeah, I think so, Mick. I don't have anything in front of me. Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's a label like it used to be, but I think it does have like there may be explicit lyrics. I'm pretty sure. I know it does on like Spotify. Has like a little.
Well, yeah, you have to even for this show when we put it up, they ask you, is it a sticker on the jewel case or? At one point, they were actually putting it on the artwork, weren't they? Originally, it was just a sticker.
They were.
Yeah, yes, and then they started putting it on the artwork, which I know people were angry about. It's like, well, you're ruining the whole concept here.
Yeah. And Mick, come to think about it, I don't think they do anymore, to be honest.
Honestly, like it's something I don't even pay attention to.
I can't visualize anything, but...
I don't even pay attention to it.
It's just part of our lives.
Yeah, it just became like, okay, well, if I want it, I'll buy it. If I don't want it, it doesn't matter what that little sticker says. But back then, it did. It was a badge of honor.
That's right.
In a sense, you know what I mean? So...
Yep.
And like I said, it backfired. It actually increased sales, whatever the case may be. I mean, I guess it's, in the long run, you look at it, especially as an adult now, parent, it's probably good that you're given fair warning so there isn't a surprise, in a sense. Like, well, if you're buying this artist, you kind of know that you're going to get this, right? And I don't know if that was more for the kids or more for the parents. Probably more for appease the parents, feel like they're doing something. So if they bought something for Christmas... and then all of a sudden the kid's playing in the house. Well, Mom, you bought it for me. That kind of thing. This way they go, well, I'm not buying that. But I do know that what that PMRC thing wound up turning into later in the late 90s and early 2000s is Walmart had become the largest music distributor of physical music, CDs and stuff, that they were actually able to get edited. Like, you want your stuff going through our stores, then we need an edited version of it.
Yeah.
So there were actually alternate versions of
Yeah.
songs being placed on albums. I don't know if that's still the case today. Like, I don't know if Walmart is still the biggest CD retailer distributor type thing, being that everything else has changed now, with online shopping and stuff like that. However, at one point in time, they were powerful enough to be able to alter the record companies to make that change. And the record companies said, okay. I mean, again, they're not going to pass up on the money. It's the same thing what they've done with the streaming services. They sold out the artists to be able to get their music out there. So the artists are making minimal money, if any, just so they can they've made money on the catalog, right? Spotify or whoever streaming service pays the record companies this big chunk of money to have their stuff on there. And then Spotify, I'll just use Spotify, their membership pays for these things, so they get big money. But the person that made the music doesn't get much at all.
It's nothing.
The argument that we've talked about over and over again. And I was saying to you, I thought that I read, because the algorithms have changed and they've done some other things, that the artists are now making less and less.
Yeah.
And where that falls into, and again, we're getting off the topic of growing up metal, but where that falls into is newer artists will make less and less that artists previously made before. And again, the artists, the ones that made money have made that money, like, right, and the Metallicas and the Taylor Swifts and all. That's why guys are selling, the Motley Crue selling off their catalog. That's why Bruce Springsteen's doing it. That's why Def Leppard just sold off more of their catalog, because they'll make more money than they ever will on the new streaming service guidelines, or the method, the model, right?
Yep.
But yeah, growing up metal at that time, when you were in the public eye, there was definitely targeted you as they made a lot of assumptions. And, that one apple spoils the whole bunch, you'll get that. A lot of this was depicted on us, the listeners, the audience, the fans, because of what they seen on MTV, or what they thought the artist was, what the artist performed like. They assumed that's what they were in real life. Now, again, there were some people like that, right? But not everybody was like that. Some of them were shtick.
No.
Surprising to say that Kiss was not knights in Satan's society. They were just, a couple nice guys from New York. Maybe not nice, but you know what I mean? That were putting on a shtick, and taking it to... I don't even know, if you look back, I don't even know if we were taking it to extremes. I mean, bands have gone even more extreme since then, but I guess at the time it seemed like an extreme type of thing. So you see where, Ozzy isn't the Prince of Darkness, even though he says it on his Sirius XM channel, but it works. You know what I mean? Because if he did, he'd be able to do what they do in Hocus Pocus and suck the souls out of the young people, and he wouldn't be walking around with a cane and looking like he's dead.
See, you are funny.
Yeah, I'm funny looking.
I think too, even the shows, man, like, we used to frequent, there was a club in Philadelphia that we used to frequent, like, there'd be like Sunday all ages shows that would be over by 10. It would be like national acts like Testament and Kicks would be running through, and that place used to be packed on a Sunday, man, all ages. And sometimes, bands would do two shows. They would do like a Saturday, the same club, Saturday night over 21, and then a Sunday show, underage.
Right.
And it was packed. It would be packed.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, you know what? The word is community, right? And it was a real community, not a social or a virtual community. Like, there was, like, listen, you didn't like everybody. You just avoided them. You didn't have to say, okay, again, there was always people with the mouths, but you were there for the greater good. You were there to support the music, support the whatever, to get together with your buddies. It was, I don't know, it was our thing. It was our existence in a way. Like, I mean, that would be the thing, like, all week. Like, yeah, I can't wait to get there Sunday. It was great. The energy, you could feel the energy just driving down. It was exciting. I mean, listen, honestly, man, there was good and bad with it, right? But it couldn't have been as bad simply because we're still doing it. Now, I guess for some people it was worse. A lot of that, I think, just is how you took whatever you were given. Like, if you let it bother you, then maybe it wasn't about the music. Maybe it was more about the look or just hanging out or whatever. But I think that for those of us that are still doing it now, the bottom line, the core of it, it's about the music. It's about the music. Nowadays, I keep the music maybe a little lower than I did in the past, and that's just to save the remaining hearing that I have. But other than that, I mean, we're just moving forward. I think that growing up metal throughout the 80s is a time that, I think that's why you keep seeing it pop up in like little Netflix movies and that 80s time. Now, maybe it's because the 80s generation is of that age right now, that nostalgia age. There are people in positions who can make those things happen. But I also think that there was something that was going on in the world where music collided with everything. TV, movies, fashion, product placement. You don't see that. It still exists, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't exist the same way. I think it's more of a background type of thing. At least here from what I see in the United States, because we change so often. And we've talked about this before, the time that we were in Europe. There was such a respect for the music, for all music, actually. Like, you could be a metalhead, hardcore, know it in and out, but you could also like country. You could also like rap. And nobody had a problem with it. They didn't judge it based on this and that and the other thing. I don't know if they get hung up so much on the genres and the subgenres as we do here, because it's such a thing about the genres. In Central and South America, I mean, metal is metal.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't guys that do in the genre stuff, but honestly, metal is metal. You'll see these same people who like Testament also like Motley Crue, and they like Slayer, and they also like Def Leppard. And you'll see that everywhere. But here in the States, there is this separation, and I think that separation started happening in the 90s. That thing that you and I are talking about that we experienced in the 80s, because that was our prime time of that community, we don't see it anymore. And I don't even see it playing in venues. And I've been in different markets throughout the United States, and I don't see it like that at all. We'll do underage shows. Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
why not?
Their money's good too.
Damn right.
Yeah. But at the same time, you just don't see that same community. I don't see it. I don't even see it among the bands like I used to.
No.
And we've talked about that before. It really isn't every man for himself. And I can understand that. It's a business, right? Coca-Cola and Pepsi aren't kind of, doing something together. Maybe. I don't know. There probably is some cahoots. Because I once read that there's only three major companies in the world that own all the other companies in the world. So who knows? That's that Illuminati type of one world power type of thing. But maybe there is some truth in it. I don't know. Anyway, you got anything else you want to add?
I don't think so, Mick. I think that's it, brother. Growing Up Metal was awesome.
All right, man. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Welcome back to Season 5. If you like that, check out some of our other seasons at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Step into the Cosmic Verse. You never know what you'll find. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This is the Cosmic Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmic Voice. You can find The Cosmic Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmic Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.